Now you don't have math. You have the other ones. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being here. This is the end of week 5, meaning after this class, we are exactly halfway through the term. Our assignment tonight is going to be setting up your GED account if you don't already have one. If you already have one, as long as you have picked PCC as your testing location, I'll be able to find you. So we'll be all set up there, but the assignment has like all the steps in case you have an account, but it's not associated with PCC, to show you how to do that. Because after this week, I'm going to start putting practice tests into your accounts. And the assignments over the next few weeks are taking the RLA, the social studies, if it applies to you, and the science test. And we're going to do classes leading up to that each time before the assignment that that help give you like what I think are the like kind of highest point tips. So we're going to focus on those things. That's what's coming up. Today is kind of a social studies focused class, but it also applies to, there's just a lot of overlap between social studies and the RLA test. That's why a lot of people don't need to take any social studies specific class, because you can often get what you need to. It's mostly about reading skills. So anybody else have any paper homework that they wanted to turn in? Okay. If you have turned something in online until last evening, I have provided feedback on that. People are doing great on the assignments that they turn in. Thank you. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about identifying bias. How do we recognize that in writing?
My lord, I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh, it's all right. Hi, Christopher.
Hi.
We're going to talk about primary and secondary sources and how that impacts what we think about how biased something is. And then we're going to complete our registration for GED.com if you have not done that before. Okay, so we're hoping. Yeah, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen. Yeah, I registered with the GED.com, so I got all this stuff done.
I saw it. I checked and I saw it and I appreciate it. Yeah, you are good to go.
Cool.
Yep. So next week, I'm going to start putting practice tests in your account, and on different days after class, the assignment is to take different tests. So
sweet.
Yeah, but the class, I would not do them early. Just so you know, I wouldn't do them before it's assigned, just because the class before is where I'm going to give you some information that I think has big payoff on the practice tests. Okay, particularly science. There's the topics that we do in science. I know, like, there are so many questions on the science practice test that it hits, like, big payoff. Yeah, this is really important. How do we distinguish between fact and opinion just by looking at word choice? So that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. So bias it's a really important skill for us, regardless of the GED. We want to be able to analyze what we're reading and determine how biased it is. What does bias mean? Anybody have an idea? What happens if you're biased?
I think like when you like attend like a jury duty or something like that, they have this whole video on being non-biased.
That's good. That's a good example. Yeah. So we are, as it says here, we are all naturally biased toward different things based on our life and experience. Bias is not always some bad thing. It sounds like it's a bad thing. It can be like prejudice, but it can also be just your preferences based on your life and experience. Not always a bad thing, right? And if you're writing something that is opinionated, like we did previously to write a persuasive review, that is a very biased piece of writing because you have a strong opinion about it that you're trying to convince other people of. There is nothing wrong with that. Where bias becomes a problem is when you are trying to portray something as a fact, but you are slipping your opinions in. So particularly in social studies, it is a real problem because our history books are incredibly biased, right? It is generally a white perspective, and what happened is, history is told by the winners of that situation. And so we're not getting the real truth. And that's true of all the things that we read and look at. The internet is one of the most biased places ever, right? People are throwing out opinions as if they're facts, and we need to be able to recognize, how do we determine whether something is real or not? And a lot of times it is really tied to the source as well. So that's why we talk about primary and secondary sources along with bias, of just like, it helps us make a good judgment if this is something that happened right in front of our eyes and we know that it's true, or if it's something that was written about 100 years later and it's someone else's idea or perception of what might have happened. Make sense? Okay. So let's learn a little bit about how we can think about writing in terms of bias.
You probably know someone who is a big sports fan. Win or lose, their team is the best and they love to let others know. In sports, we expect people to be biased for their own team. Their goal isn't fairness, and it's obvious. They wear their bias on their sleeve or even their face on occasion. And just like people root for sports teams, they also root for ideas, laws, products, research, politicians, and more. People often write articles, make videos, and do interviews that are biased. They are designed to promote their team's side of the story. And that's fine. Bias can rally a team and win debates for the greater good. The problem is that bias is often hidden. What might appear to be neutral, fair information can be biased. For example, to understand the current state of climate change, you can't depend on one team's biased perspective. You need information that is neutral, fair, and unbiased. The same is true for important decisions in science, education, government, and more. Unbiased information is essential. The problem is that it can be hard to see whether the goal of an article, for instance, is to be fair or to root for their team. The best you can do is learn to detect bias. Imagine reading an article and asking yourself, who is the author and what is their motivation? Do they earn money or benefit by promoting one idea over another? If so, the article may be biased. Does the author provide only one way to think about a subject? Do they ignore key information or perspectives that don't fit their own? If so, they may be biased. Are sources cited in the article? Who or what are they, and what role do they play? If the sources are biased, there may be misinformation, and the article itself may be biased. Does the article use insulting language or buzzwords? Does it use examples that appeal to only one side of the story? If so, the article may be biased. It's important to note that bias isn't always bad and can be helpful. The key is learning to recognize the author's bias and evaluating the information with that bias in mind. This way, you can choose the best sources for your needs.
All right. Any questions about that? Anybody ever see there's like a scale of news that shows just how biased different things are and in what direction?
Yeah.
And there's a big map of all of the different kind of news sources and where they fall.
Yeah, I watched Star Talk, and Star Talk, the audio podcast.
Is that with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
And often they advertise to get a membership for a I don't want to say non-biased, but a website for news,
Mhm.
and it shows far left or far right or
Uh-huh.
in the middle,
Yeah.
and there's different same topic, one topic of
Yes.
this topic, but different ways they approach it.
Yeah.
Different articles from different.
Yeah. Good example. Yeah. So our news, particularly right now, more than ever, is
Yeah.
either extreme one side or the other, and giving you extremely biased information, and then those in the middle, such as NPR, which is a journalistic
Yeah.
organization that has been proven by lots of people to be very unbiased, was just defunded. So it's interesting. But just something to keep in mind about where you get your news and information from and how it falls and what does that mean. Because journalism is a place where we are supposed to be as unbiased as possible. It's part of why maybe reading articles that are really unbiased tend to be kind of boring because they are just factual and people get more drawn to things that support their own opinions, you know? So just something to keep in mind as you're reading and you find things maybe kind of dry and not as interesting as some other sources might be. It's usually because they're actually doing a journalistic job of reporting on facts and information that are supported rather than putting much of their own opinion in there. Okay. So bias is when a writer shows preference, prejudice for or against an idea, person, or thing. So if an article is only showing you the positive side of a politician's actions, it may be biased. We should always see some pros and cons, no matter what we're talking about in terms of factual or journalistic writing. Again, opinions are great for lots of other things. Even newspapers will have, quote, opinion pieces, and they call it out so that you know this is just one person's opinion. Great to have those, but we can't pretend that that's just factual information. Okay. Yeah, bias really makes arguments less trustworthy. It really identifying it demonstrates our critical thinking, just helping us. It doesn't mean that we have to throw away everything that we read in a bias article. It's just that we need to be aware of it. If we can spot it, we'll just like take that into account when we're making judgments. And how about that? Have you ever seen something that have you read or seen something that didn't seem fair to you that was being reported or presented in a biased way? Can you think of anything?
For the elections be one of them?
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, I think elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say, I don't know if y'all watch Instagram, but every single thing that I open up on Instagram is biased pretty much to the things that I have chosen. You know, it knows what I like, and so it supports that more. And so when I'm looking at things on Instagram, I have to be particularly careful and thoughtful that, yeah, I agree with this. I agree. You know, if you look at the same thing all the time without hearing another perspective, it gets dangerous. Not that Instagram's a great news source. It really isn't. Neil deGrasse Tyson, speaking of which, he is an incredibly famous scientist, really smart guy, really interesting. This is just a fascinating tidbit to me. Did you see this? He predicted the end of the internet by 2029.
I think it was part of a podcast, you made predictions for the
Yeah,
future.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. And his reasoning for that comment was that AI is so like soaked in the internet now that even conspiracy theorists won't be able to believe their conspiracy theories because there will be almost nothing on the internet that holds any truth whatsoever. And so it will just be kind of like tanked as garbage. He said it will go back to being just cat videos and used for nothing else. Because it's just, that's what AI is like. People can create whatever they want to, false images, false, all kinds of things. And so I just thought that was interesting. That's not that far away. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I thought that was an interesting prediction. Yeah. Wild. Okay, so some of the things that we're looking for to be able to spot bias would be stronger emotional language. If we're trying to drum up all of those persuasive techniques that we talked about, are going to come into play here. If we have just one-sided arguments and never show a second opinion, the alternate, you know, benefits or pros or cons, if they have a lack of evidence or sources, or poor sources. And this is really important for writing your GED essay. When you have information, we want to look at who wrote it, right? We're comparing two articles for that GED essay, and one might cite some sources that are official And this is an extreme example, but another might say, you know, my mom disagrees with this. Well, okay, great. You know, that's just one opinion. That's not a great source in comparison to a study that was done on the same topic. So we've got to look at what those sources come from, or if we know the sources to be a really biased source. Then we want to look for, yeah, stereotypes and loaded words, or just, again, missing viewpoints. Those are some clues to spot it. Here's some examples. City leaders are destroying our neighborhoods by building dangerous bike lanes everywhere. It's not really giving they may be dangerous in certain circumstances, but it's not giving a second perspective of the people that are really appreciating bike lanes. Yeah. So what words in there do you think are showing the bias?
Destroying dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are really strong in one direction. Absolutely. How do you know if this is opinion or fact?
It's just an opinion, there's no evidence.
Absolutely, there's no evidence. It could have been said differently. You could be making the same point, but in a different way by saying something like, the bike lanes are dangerous as cited by 15 accidents in this one area or intersection. You know, have something to back it up. So that would take away the biasness if you're like giving examples of why it's dangerous. So yeah, emotional, extreme. Here's another one. Some residents support new bike lanes for safety while others worry about traffic changes. City leaders say they're reviewing all feedback. Is this balanced or biased? Yeah, it's balanced. It's showing both sides. So some residents think that they are safe, others are worried about it. So it's at least giving two different perspectives on the same thing. Okay. For the GED, we always want to be looking at who wrote it and why. So when you read an article, we want to know what perspective is this coming from? Is it somebody that was there? Is it somebody that has a particular vested interest in why they say it? And then we're looking for those particular words that are strong opinions, unfair language, and are missing other viewpoints. So if they're always pushing one side, or it's a strongly worded piece about a particular viewpoint and you don't have a balance, then we've got some bias. So we want to be looking for things that have evidence, logic, and not just emotion. The emotion's great for persuasive writing, but not good, particularly in social studies. Okay. All right, let's read these two and see what do we think. Which one is bias and how do you know? Anybody want to read this first one? Okay. The women's suffrage. Here's a great question. What's suffrage? Anybody know? Did you see the word suffrage on your social studies test? It very frequently comes up on social studies test. Suffrage means the fight for a woman's right to vote. Suffrage is the women's right to vote. So women's suffrage movement gained momentum in the 1900s as more people supported giving women the right to vote. While many Americans agreed with the cause, others opposed it due to traditional beliefs about gender roles. Supporters argued for equality and democracy, while opponents feared changes to family and political life. Interesting. Women's rights stuff is very interesting at the recentness of a lot of it. Did you know a woman couldn't own a business or a credit card in their own name until 1986? 86.
1986?
Oh
I was born.
yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Like couldn't open a bank account without her husband's name on the account.
What if she was single?
then it had to be your dad. Yeah, that's pretty recent, right? I didn't know that until recently. So women's suffrage movement was clearly the only force for good in America in the early 20th century. Oh, I'm reading wrong. Women's suffrage movement was clearly the only force for good in early 20th century America. Anyone who opposed giving women the vote was just ignorant and afraid of change. Anti-suffrage groups were made up of backward thinkers who didn't care about fairness or democracy. Okay.
So one of those biased, one that's not biased,
Mhm. Which is which?
person is not biased, second biased.
Yeah. So what's challenging is, like, for me, I agree with this. That's just my personal opinion, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not biased.
Yeah.
This one is showing two sides of the same thing. This one has a lot of inflammatory language or strong emotional opinions. What are some of the words that help you identify that it's the biased one? Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Ignorant and afraid. Wonderful. Yeah.
He knows that they care.
Yeah, you don't know, you don't know. Yeah, yeah, excellent. Excellent. That can be one of the challenging things, right? Just because we might agree or have some of those same feelings doesn't mean that it's good. Okay.
What do you think of my new glasses? Would you say they make me look smart? You said yes. Why? See, if I take them off, my intelligence doesn't change. I do read the script, but people with glasses being smarter is just an example of a stereotype. Right? It's a widely held concept that's oversimplified and it's not always true. Stereotypes are commonly believed, but that doesn't make them correct or logical. As writers and readers, we may be tempted to let our beliefs override the fact. You have to call honest. Bias and stereotypes both place opinions before facts, which can damage the integrity of your writing. Research will much more than your sources too. Let's start with bias. Bias happens when someone's opinions change the way they present facts. They might bend the truth to make something look better or worse based on their own feelings. Biased portrayals are typically unfair, and they don't give a complete understanding of the topic. Now let's talk about a few common types of bias that you may encounter when looking for sources. Agenda, omission, and sensationalism. An agenda is the underlying motives or intentions of a person or group. Does the author have a reason to misrepresent or twist the fact? For example, if you saw an article explaining that cheeseburgers are healthy for you, you might be pleasantly surprised and start ordering one right away. But wait, ask yourself a few questions. Who wrote the article? What website is it? Who funded the research? You may dig a little deeper and find that the post was sponsored by Burger Jeff's, a burger company. Now, their pretty clear agenda is to sell more cheeseburgers. It helps them if you think cheeseburgers are flawless and amazing. This may lead them to portray things in a dishonest or incomplete way. And that's a classic example of bias. Omission is defined as something left out, neglected, or undone. In the context of writing, it's basically everything that isn't included in the piece. If a source is biased, it may completely leave out any facts or ideas that don't support its agenda. Now let's bring it back to the cheeseburger example, and I promise it's not just because I'm hungry. Let's say the article fixates completely on the protein content of cheeseburgers. Well, that's all you look at, it's easy to make them seem healthy. But you may notice that the article doesn't mention fat or sodium at all, which are two things that burgers often contain an unhealthy amount of. The article omitted these facts because of its pro-burger bias. Shame on you, Burger Jeff. Since omission refers to things that are not found in the writing, it can be hard to identify at first. You can be on the lookout for gaps in context or unanswered questions. But omission, like all types of bias, is easiest to identify when you read and compare multiple sources. Another way to identify bias is sensationalism, defined as the use of exciting or shocking stories or language, usually at the expense of accuracy. When looking at sources, we want to be on the lookout for extreme word choices. For example, words like wonderful and awful indicate opinions, not facts. Sensationalism is often seen as an appeal to emotion. Good scholarly works and sources are typically created to educate or inform. When a source goes out of its way to make you feel a certain emotion, that could be a clue that it's biased. For example, let's imagine 3 articles about, let's move on from cheeseburgers. Let's say it's 3 articles about a new stadium that's being built in your town. The first article uses words like exciting, fun, and vibrant. Words like these are meant to make you feel positive. The second article calls the stadium cumbersome and laments about months of loud, ugly construction. Those word choices indicate a negative opinion. The best source would be article number 3, which sticks to names, dates, and quotes. Construction will start in May 2025, with the owner stating they plan to be ready for the 2026 season. No emotions to be seen. That sort of neutral tone may seem kind of boring at first, but it helps us trust a source when we know that they're focused on the facts. So to review, 3 commonly used types of bias are agenda, omission, and sensationalism. Before reading any source, does anyone involved in creating this article stand to gain or lose anything? Are there any glaring holes or gaps in the information or context? Is the word choice fair and neutral? It's also important to ask ourselves these questions about our own writing. You may have an opinion about a topic you're writing about, and that's totally okay. You just have to make sure that you're aware of it so you can avoid showing bias in your writing. Make sure you don't use biased language or leave out important information. Separate yourself from your bias and allow yourself to learn new things that may challenge your beliefs. Next, let's delve a little bit deeper into stereotypes. Let's look at a common riddle. A father and son are in a car accident, after which they're rushed to the hospital. The boy is taken to surgery where the surgeon is shocked to see him and says, "I cannot operate on this boy, he is my son." Now, how is this possible? Many are stumped by this riddle at first. Wasn't the father just in a car accident?
Anybody know that riddle? Have you heard it before?
Read that.
Okay.
Very.
Any thoughts?
Boy is taken to surgery where the surgeon is shocked to see him and says, "I cannot operate on this boy, he is my son." Now, how is this possible? Many are stumped by this riddle at first.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess.
Wasn't the father just in a car accident? There's no way he's back at work. Well, the answer is extremely simple. The surgeon was the child's mother. Looking back, this seems quite obvious. This is an example of a harmful or negative stereotype.
And they don't say it, but he could also have 2 dads.
Alright, guys.
Yeah.
Stereotypes may also be racist, homophobic, or derogatory in other ways. But this is not always the case. Now, stereotypes don't need to be negative to be harmful. One example being a model minority myth. LearningForJustice.org says that this myth characterizes Asian Americans as a polite, law-abiding group who have achieved a higher level of success than the general population through some combination of innate talent and pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps, immigrant striving. And while it may seem positive, it creates unrealistic expectations and pressures to conform, and ignores the diversity and challenges within Asian American communities. It can also contribute to divisions between minority groups by setting a benchmark for comparison. There are also stereotypes that aren't about people. For example, the stereotype about cats is that they're independent animals. However, cats, like all pets, require engagement and responsible care from their owners. As members of society, we've all heard stereotypes and may believe many of them. But even if we set their harmfulness aside, they still only give a surface level understanding of any topic. For a piece of writing to be interesting and unique, the author needs to understand things on a fuller level than stereotypes can offer. One way to get past stereotypes about groups of people is to learn from diverse perspectives. It's important to hear voices from various backgrounds and experiences. This will make you more empathetic and help you gain a deeper and more complete understanding. So to review, bias and stereotype are not the same thing, but they can both harm the integrity of written work by getting in the way of facts. To avoid that, it helps to use a wider variety of sources. This will help you notice bias and stereotypes and overcome them in your work. That's all for this review, and I'm off to Jeff's Burgers.
So the points too about women's rights kind of circles back to Frankenstein, that book that we keep touching on from time to time. That author wrote Frankenstein in the late 1800s. And it was written by a woman, so it was not published under a woman's name at first because that was not going to work out. So later, over time, it has been published under her name, but she couldn't get it published right away. So she put it under a man's name and then got it out there. Okay, here's that paper that I handed out, some claims and evidence, just helping us identify what are good claims and why. What kind of evidence are we looking for? So anytime somebody's making a statement or position, that is their claim. We talked about that over the last couple classes here and there, kind of pulling out claims and thesis statements. So we want it to be supported with different sources and draw a conclusion from the evidence that is there. So we need to determine which things from the text help support that claim. When we're writing, when we're reading, are the things that are supposed to be supporting it really supporting it? Does everything kind of go together? Sources is where the evidence comes from. So as they were talking about in the video, we want to be looking out for what makes a good source. What do you think makes a good source? What would you want to know about somebody writing an article? Let's say if it's sources or websites are absolutely kinds of sources. What would make one better than another one? Like if I'm pulling information to write a paper, totally. But how would you identify that right away just by where it came from?
I think for me, it's about like the history of that record. And then also like the website, because as an Indigenous person, it's important for us to pay attention to those because we can create. So like the author is very important to know their history and the background.
You got it.
And then also site.
Yes.
Everybody needs Wikipedia, greatest source needs.
It's not, yeah, that's a good point. Wikipedia is not a good source necessarily. It's just a real mishmash of all kinds of things that you absolutely cannot trust. Author, Anua picked it out. So who is the author? Where are they coming from? What do you know about them? Sometimes people have credentials. Sometimes those credentials may or may not matter. I'll give you an example from my personal life of just like a time that I fell kind of sucker to something online because I agreed with it until I looked it up. It was a doctor talking about, because my personal belief is that people are like over medicated. You know, I think people take too much medication. It's not something I want to do. So I'm kind of, you know, pharmacology is a little excessive, particular for older people, you know. And I found a doctor talking about cholesterol medication and how we're trying to lower and lower and lower cholesterol, but it's like cholesterol is kind of about fats, and you need fats in your brain and you need it to prevent dementia. And so trying to lower and lower and lower cholesterol is actually having a negative effect on patients. And it's been more recent that doctors have been dropping like a cholesterol number that they want patients to have. I heard this and I'm like, well, heck yeah. I mean, come on, we don't want to have dementia. I got all behind it. And then I was telling somebody else about it and they said, yeah, I'm really interested in that too. Can you send it to me? And I said, yeah, I'll have to go back and look it up. So I went back and I found it and I looked it up and then I researched the doctor. And their reputation is horrible. They are considered a quack. Other people do not respect these findings and do not agree with them. And so it was just like, right, Colleen, you should know better. You should check your sources. Just because somebody says something that makes sense to you does not mean that it is good, reliable information. There weren't studies to back it up. There wasn't information. I just wanted to believe it because it agreed with what my own personal thing. So good example of just like check your sources, check your author. Who is it coming from and are they reliable?
I think what we see live also is like the advertisement.
For sure.
When you mentioned the internet, I was thinking like I see, like if you're watching on Facebook, you'll see ads for clothes or shoes.
Mhm.
But or you just it's on Facebook. But sometimes those companies are fake companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
and Don't really exist. They don't send you anything, they just take your money.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had it happen too.
Yeah.
But if you like, you can even Google the name of the website.
Yes.
So
You got to get out and look at it differently
It'll tell you if it's
if it's real.
real, like, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Scam.
Yes. Yeah. Now, because there are so many scams, we have to check and check and check.
Yeah, I've seen stuff on Facebook that I was, oh, I want that.
Yeah,
and then,
it's not real. I've done that too. I bought something for my husband a few years ago and it's like, that doesn't exist.
Like another like, big one, I think is.
Great video though.
pallets, the Amazon pallets that they sell.
Uh,
I paid for one time.
Oh,
and it was
no.
a game.
damn.
And then a couple months later, I saw the ad for the pallets again, so
Mhm.
I researched it and it said it's a scam.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, we're going to research it.
yeah, yeah. Where is it coming from?
Where's?
Where is this? What is this? Yeah. Yeah, you have to, I mean, once you fall for it once, you never will again, right? You're gonna check. Well, the same is true in our reading, you know, we get excited about different authors' opinions, but like, where does that come from? Or who funds them and why? Just like the video showed. So it's really good to check what those sources are, and the author is a great place to do it. So the evidence should be factual details, not opinions. We should have, I mean, the best details are research that has numbers, information that you can verify in another way. Even they theoretically in anything scientific or economic, they are not supposed to be publishing anything that hasn't been fact checked by peers, right? So other people are supposed to review what you've written and say, oh, is the study been repeated other places? Can it be? So there are certain journals that you know are peer reviewed. That's what it means when something is peer reviewed. So if it was, for example, a medical journal, it's a team of doctors that then look at the research and confirm whether it is valid and viable. Those are some of the ways that you would know. Okay, and this gets into another topic that we're covering today, primary and secondary sources. So primary sources are going to be your first-hand accounts by people who witnessed an event. Super important in history because over time, who knows what happened, and people start to make up their opinions of what went down. But that's considered a secondary source. So all of our textbooks about history at this point are maybe combinations of things, but are secondary sources. They are not, we don't know. It's older information. So if you can get within that journal entries, letters, autobiographies. Thankfully, now we are in a time when things can be more recorded and saved. So it's a little bit easier to track down where information came from. Documents and photographs are going to be primary sources. It's the thing that happened right there when we're witnessing it. Secondary sources are even journalistic articles. If they are written after the fact of an event, they're gathering data from different people. They keep it as unbiased as they can by maybe interviewing many people that were there, but it's still a secondary source, right? They weren't there themselves as they're writing it. Doesn't mean that secondary sources are bad at all. It's just that like primary sources, that is the person was there, they saw it, it's a photograph that happened there, it's like the account of what was going on. Secondary sources then are kind of trying to recreate that experience for us. Sometimes those secondary sources can be an even fuller experience because we are getting multiple perspectives rather than one piece perspective at a time. But it's just something to take into account. Sometimes the secondary sources don't take opinions into account and they just kind of piece together some stuff and regurgitate thoughts, and that's where a lot of bias can come in. Credibility is around the trustworthiness of the person writing it. How accurate do we think this is? What's slanted mean? Have you heard that in terms of writing? So it is, it's under credibility, slanted. We are misled by inaccurate, unfair, or slanted information. If you haven't heard that before, slanted is that absolutely one-sided. Yes, so it's kind of like tipped the scale one direction. That's the slant. Excellent. So when you are trying to determine your credibility, you're going to look at the name of the source. Have you heard of it before? Is it a reliable source? Is it some wacky website, or is it like the New York Times, for example, or some other like long established reporting organization? Then you're going to study the title of the text, because the title often gives us a lot of information. We might be able to see bias right in the title and know that it's not going to be a fair or complete report. And then fact check, we want to do that, compare more than one source. If we see something on the internet that looks really good, we got to step out and check it from another way. And then what do we know about the person? Like you said, so we want to find out who wrote it and what history do they have? What's their personal attachment to anything that they're writing about? Does the author have an emotional connection to the topic? Sometimes we do, we're motivated to write things because of very personal attachments. And that has to be kind of taken into account too, in a positive or negative way, right? We've just got to think about understanding that personal connection to it. Yeah, many facts and details may be out of date, so we want to look at how old it is. There are some things that are not meant to be cited if you are doing something sciencey. If you've got old information in there, that has probably been replaced with newer and better information. Okay, and then it's just talking about the professional looking sites. How do you know? Just check that out if it looks like it's if it's full of misspellings, grammatical errors. Yeah, just ignore that on my own course page, because I always have misspellings and grammatical.
Understand the appearance of the source. The second one is check the website URL, the
Yeah.
.com versus .com.
Yeah.
That never occurred to check it when I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like before.
Yeah.
Until I don't know, somebody told me it was quite useful to check .gov if it's
Yeah.
government.
If it's really government, or .org is an organization. Yeah, is a nonprofit organization. EDU at the end is from a school. Yeah. So there can be a little bit of difference. So again, we've got that claim. This is on the third page. The claim has the author's thesis statement. It's going to let you know the position, point of view, or stance. The evidence are all of those details that we're using to support it. Facts better be proven by data and observation. There should be some way that we are proving them for them to be facts. And stories that just make assumptions about people understanding, like a commonly understood statement it's a little dangerous, like dogs are men's best friend. That's just making an assumption and trying to get us all to agree or be on the same page about something. Counter argument is a statement that recognizes an opposing viewpoint and disproves it with further reasons or evidence. So we want to see those within a writing. We want to see the counterpoint, counterpoint, some just difference of opinion within the same article. Again, we are looking for loaded language, emotional stuff, things that are just like overly dramatic, either positive or negative. Both are trying to pull us. It's really working into persuasive writing rather than others. Where's it coming from? Does it have commonplace assertion, or is it appealing to you on those persuasive technique levels? All right. Questions about that? Okay. It is 10 till 7. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, unless people want a longer one. 15. Anybody need more time? Yeah, 15. 15. All right. 15-minute break.
15.
Thank you.
Hi.
15, Dan says. All right.
Be back at 7:05 about?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Did I get my base?
Yes, I will need to go to another room to get that, but yeah. Thanks for asking. You with you, Holly?
Nothing.
When are we taking the science practice test?
Good question. Let me see which day that was.
We taking the test without taking classes?
Yep. Yeah, most people do not need social studies or science classes. Many people will pass without taking those specific classes because there's so much in this reading class that help you with social studies and science, little bit of math. So really, if you focus on the reading and math, the other two kind of come together for most people. If they don't, there are those classes, but they are all online only.
Wow,
They don't do any in-person social studies or science. Mhm.
that's crazy.
But there's not that many people wanting to take them. People really do pass them the science test tends to be, especially if you've already got your math done, it's gonna come together. Okay, let's see, which week? So week 8, so we've got 6, so next week we are doing, next week, I think the assignment is for the RLA test. Week 7 is not, it's just more information. And then week 8, we're gonna do both social studies and science, but you'll only have to do science.
What if we pass the practice test for the RLA?
Yeah, then
Go
I'll,
ahead and schedule them.
yep, yeah. You ready?
Karen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. However, if your score is really close, I might encourage you to wait till the end,
Yeah,
just because you'll pick up a little, every single topic I do on here is just because it comes up on the GED. So, like if you have a score that's just like 146 or something really close, you might want to wait till closer to the end.
okay.
Or you could get online and look ahead at some things. Because some of it might just be like, yeah, I know that, I don't know. Yeah, so week 8 is those tests. But if you want to do them earlier, like I have your GED account, I'm going to this week put all the practice tests in there. So you don't have to wait until we do it, but you might benefit from waiting until we have the. I mean, I can give out multiple practice tests too. So if you did it early and it wasn't as good as you wanted it to be, and then we have the class about it, I can give you another practice test. It's easy to hand out practice tests. It's harder to hand out official tests just because of the price and the,
Excited.
yeah, you're ready to get it done, huh?
Yeah.
I bet you will. once people start rolling on it, they, you know. Like if you've already got the skills to pass two, you're gonna pass the other two.
I've heard science is not that hard.
No, it's usually the easiest one for people to pass. And we cover, for the class, we're gonna cover experimental design. In my experience, like a fourth of the questions are about experimental design, so that's really, that really helps kind of get you over the hump of things, because it's just terminology that you might not know otherwise. A lot of the other ones you can just kind of intuit and figure it out. But one of the reasons that people find the science test easier than other ones is the questions are more straightforward. It's like, you know how usually we go through and it's like, I don't know, it could be this one, it could be, or you can eliminate two and you get down to two and it's like, well, they're both good. In science, that's so much less the case. There's just like one good answer for most of the time. Like less odd language that might.
Is there
confuse you.
chemistry in there?
Yeah.
There is?
Not a lot, not a lot. You just may see a chemistry question or two. Yeah. Not a lot.
There biology?
Yep.
What else?
Physics,
Physics.
environmental science. Yeah, I was making faces like, no, that does not sound good. You might be surprised. You might be able to just figure it out. Make good guesses. But yeah, they always have. Remember, again, you have to get about half of them right. So there's always going to be questions that you're like, oh, balance this chemical equation or something. You're like, oh, no. There's always going to be some really hard ones, but there'll be plenty that you can answer. I should have stopped the record, but I didn't. I'm sorry to those of you watching at home. I hope you found our conversations here useful.
Is there 7:05?
No, not yet.
What time?
I said 7:05, but it's 7:02 right now.
No, but what time 7:05 is come back?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have time. Yeah. Oh, how I was tired.
Sleeping the whole sleep.
Yes, sometimes more tired after sleeping the whole day. Is that how you're feeling? You
Now
got a lot
I
of sleep?
Like more than 15 hours a day because I have nothing else to do. Then I'll just feel tired and looking at them.
Yeah, I know. I think we all have like the right number of hours, like generally. And if you get too few, you're tired, but if you get too many, you're tired too. That's true for me. I don't know. Like what, I don't know what's going on in our brains that too much sleep makes you tired.
Yeah. Especially when you're bored,
Yeah,
I have nothing else to do but sleep.
yeah. Sounds like you need to find some more things to do.
No, but
You're good.
it's just like life is so boring. I just try to watch something, and then when I watch something, then I sleep. That's it. I'll be awake all night because I'm sleeping all day. Last night I was awake yesterday the whole day. No, the whole night. And I forgot that I had a doctor appointment at 8 a.m. So when it was around 4, I tried to sleep and then wake up at 6, get ready, go to catch the bus at 7 and be there at 8. But I overslept and I came up with the excuse and said I was sick, I can't come today. Yeah, it's horrible.
Oh, that is horrible. I hate those moments when you're like, The panic sets in of just like, what have I done?
Yeah, I woke up at 6, got already, wore my clothes, then went to bed. I was like, let me just.
Oh,
10 minutes.
no.
Then-
Dang. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the bus. And the next bus came at 8, so.
I'm sorry, I'm here.
Too late. Oh, hello, hello. Welcome
Yeah,
back.
I'm here. I didn't know if you were waiting on me or not, but I'm here.
Oh, nobody's waiting on you, Chris. We're all good. We're
Perfect.
we're just chit chatting till people are here. We got another minute or two. You taking classes in the fall hall? Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
I think math, I'm not taking math classes right now, but math tutoring, like Mrs. Florence, she gave us packets every time, but I just want to take classes too.
Yeah. Mhm. All right, welcome back, welcome back. So I handed out some editorial things for us to read, so we're gonna jump ahead in the online bit. I was having a tough time deciding the order that I wanted to do it in, but so if you will take a look at this, there are 3 articles written about the same topic from different sources. They're just made up articles. And you can see them all here online. So take your time and carefully read each of these and consider who's writing it, what their perspective is, and then we're going to answer some questions about these readings that you have.
Is there a question?
Yeah, there's questions at the end. Hey, welcome back.
So do we just pick these ones to read and then?
Let's read all 3.
Okay.
All 3.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 articles and then questions. So we are doing this editorial. There's 3 brief articles and then some questions. No, they look like it, but they are not the same article on both sides because they are about the same topic, but from different people. Hey, Dan, we are reading these 3 articles that are on the screen right now, these 3 paragraphs, noticing who wrote them and thinking about bias. Thanks. Oh, did I not give one to you? Oh, an extra pencil? Sorry, yes, absolutely. Anybody else need a pencil? Yeah. It's not me, but I like it. So we are reading these articles. There's 3 articles, and then we're gonna do the questions together. Okay. Let me know when you're done reading. You're done? Okay. You're done? Okay. All right. Just another minute. Okay, now what I would like you to do is choose one of the three articles. You're gonna work with other people and discuss it. So maybe I'll just assign it. How about, there's three, how about you three work on Article 1? You four work on Article 2, and the people online will do the last one, the ERM Public Relations. So group 1, you're gonna discuss and fill out the worksheet with pros and cons on this editorial 1. Group 2 here is working on the City Council Office 1, and then Chris and Dan are going to talk about this third article, and you're going to answer the following questions. This one right here, these 2 questions. That are on the ERM one, sorry. So if you are in group 3, yeah, Chris and Dan, you guys are doing Article 1, they're doing Article 2. And Chris and Dan, you're looking at this Article 3 by ERM.
Okay,
I am going to mute so that you can discuss without hearing me. Okay? But if
okay,
you need me, stick a note in the chat. All right?
copy. Can Dan hear me?
Oh, Dan just left.
Oh, no, Dan, no!
I know Dan is having trouble with connection because they've gone in and out multiple times. So
Okay.
sorry. Are you able to do it on your own, Chris?
I'm sure I probably am. So announcement, ERM, public relations. What are some pros and cons? Yeah, I think I should probably be able to.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to mute my audio so that you don't hear all of us talking in the class at once. Okay.
Cool. I talk to myself all the time anyway, too. So
I'll
we're
check
good.
back in a minute.
All right. So I see. ERM, let's see. CC.
Hi, Dan. Welcome back. I don't know how well the computer's working for you. But
Honestly, I'm getting like half a second frozen, half a second frozen.
oh, I'm sorry, Dan. I couldn't really make out what you were saying. We're working on a group project right now. If you want to, oh, they left. Okay. Okay.
Meeting, signing, oh shit, okay, let me see, let's do this.
Hey, any better luck this time?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Cool. You started talking, I went to talk, then I got kicked off.
Okay, so Dan, if I could have you read this, this third article right here by ERM Landfill, and you and Chris are working in a group to answer just these couple questions right here. Okay, these 2.
Is that under content week 5?
Yes, you can look
Yeah.
at the screen though. I'm not gonna move it. Can you see what I have highlighted on the screen?
It's
I'm,
blurry on my end.
Okay.
Dan, if you can hear me, I'm actually printing it out so then that way we can stay on it and we can read it without having to switch back and forth.
Cool.
So I actually just printed it out and it should have the questions too. All right. Can you hear me? Good.
I can hear you for now. I'll let you know if I stop being able to hear you.
Okay, Charlotte, will you please turn down the TV, please? I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, so
I'm gonna put you two in a room and hopefully that might work better for hearing each other, okay?
Construction.
okay.
Of the landfill will be short.
Are we reading the landfill one?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so if you can pick join, then maybe it'll be easier to hear each other. Excellent. All right.
Yeah,
How's it going?
Garbage. No, just a building.
And then.
Yeah, well, who's the clinical view? We didn't able to drive back our system.
Okay,
Yeah.
The last con is homeowners moving away.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, the only pro is that there's gonna be.
And they were.
A waste management building. That's the only pro.
Yeah.
How we doing? Need a few more minutes or wrapped up? Few more minutes. Awesome.
So this is what we put, the answer for these two questions is that, we believe it's a simple yes or no question, so we know now. And then the pros is waste management company, just one. And then 3 cons was short distance of the construction will create noise. And then another one is what was a beautiful view will be garbage. The last one is homeowners moving away.
All right, good job. You can stay there because we'll do one more thing and you can stay in the same group. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I like you being here, Michael. It helps elevate the mood of the room. You're one of my anchors, you know? You don't want to do it again?
Not gonna go home.
Oh, yeah, that is a problem, right? People seize up the,
The parking.
yeah,
So I have to park far away, because I'm not gonna go home, but get busy.
yeah.
What class are we, 8?
Yeah, around 8.
I might come again.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Okay, think about it.
I live abroad. Where do you live?
Here too.
You drive? Yeah.
No.
You take the max, yeah. I love the max.
I like the Max too.
Yeah.
It's fun to ride.
Yeah, sometimes less fun, but most of the time it's good. Most of the time it's good.
It goes to the tunnel.
Yeah.
We're ready.
All right. How about back there? Feeling ready? Ready-ish. That's okay. Ready-ish. We're gonna wrap it up and see. Okay. I'm gonna close their room. You have 60 more seconds while this closes to write anything else down that you want to. It's always a mystery to see if people come back okay from breakout rooms. Fingers crossed.
What if Dan logs out again?
I know, I know. Dan's been having some serious connection problems.
Yes.
That's really frustrating. I think this class alone, I may have let Dan into the room like 8 times so far, so. But Dan keeps trying. Welcome back.
Boy, we got it.
Welcome back. You got it? All right. Let's discuss group 1. So you were looking at the author Darwin Munch and Not in My Backyard editorial. What do you think after reading that one? Do you think City Council made a fair choice when choosing the successful proposal for the new landfill?
Well, turn that down any place.
Now, why not?
Because he hints that he's not satisfied with the decision a lot of the time in the article.
And it doesn't show the article. It doesn't.
Hey, group 2.
Yeah.
We're now listening to group 1's report. We'll listen to yours in just a sec. Thanks.
And it's also not backing up if the city council made any fair choices or anything like that. It's just saying that they just made a choice. They didn't specifically said any details if they even considered it.
Great, great. How about, could you find any pros?
The only pro is that there's gonna be a waste management company, so that's a good thing. for the
Yeah, they need a
environment.
landfill. Everybody
Yeah.
needs some landfill somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we'll.
But what about the cons?
I'll say one con, short distance, a lot of noise.
Okay, yes. What else?
Able to enjoy their backyard.
Yes, they will not be able to enjoy their backyard as much, according to this editorial. Yeah,
And the last one, homeowners moving away.
fantastic.
And
Yeah, you have something else, Hala?
what was once a beautiful view would not be blocked by a mountain of garbage.
Oh, blocked by a mountain of garbage. That sounds like a con to me. Yeah, that's not good. All right, how about group 2? What did you determine from the city council office and their meeting? Did they make a fair choice? What do you think? Okay, yeah. So what were some of the pros? Absolutely, yeah, that's a good pro. Yeah, they got some opinions. What else? Anything else? in pro?
The new buildings will be constructed outside the city.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a good pro because we do want mountains of garbage somewhere else. Yeah, excellent. Any other pros you found? Okay, yeah, they're ready to welcome more. They've heard some, but they're open to hearing more opinions. Excellent.
They've set like dates next week, so once for meetings to hear those opinions.
Right, so there will be more opportunities. Yes. Yeah, it's not just we said we're open to it. We have set up specific times to hear those opinions. Excellent. What about any cons? Could you find any cons?
No, we couldn't, but I think the only thing that we were really thinking about was the drive for the waste management.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, perfect. And it's a loose con, right? It's not like, it's not fully a con, but fantastic identification. That's really good. Really, really good. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. You got that. Okay, very cool. Okay, Christopher, I guess it's just you. You want to report to us on the ERM, public relations.
Word. So some of the pros
Huh?
would be that it would be good for like the city streets and stuff like that because of the landfill, keep garbage off the streets. It'll bring a lot of new jobs.
Good.
So that was one thing that they identified in there. And then some of the cons would be, yeah, the backyards, and it would be loud and noisy, especially if you live closer to it. A lot of traffic going in and out of there.
Yeah.
You know, those are
Okay,
just
Christopher, I want to interrupt you for 1 second though, because I think you might be reporting cons on all the articles. So did that
Huh?
waste management, were they concerned about the noise?
No, they weren't, but that's
Oh.
the overall, yeah. So
Yeah. So, yeah, over all of them, yeah. But how about, do you think that this article in particular, or this statement from ERM, this announcement from ERM landfill, do you think that they think city council made a fair choice?
I feel pretty pro the
yeah,
choice. Like,
Oh, hey,
oh
Dan,
yeah,
there you are.
compromise. Yeah, I have been here the whole time.
yes. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, from the waste management company as well, so they're biased towards gonna bring them money. At least partially.
Yeah, we just can't hear, we can't make out the words you're saying, Dan. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Everybody in here has found all the important points. So, yeah, ERM definitely thinks that the city council made a good choice because they don't really see any cons to this. They don't see cons to this. Why might they not see cons to this landfill?
It's their business.
It's their business. They're the landfill company. They want this to happen for sure. Okay, so with that said,
If they get it approved, then they make money.
absolutely,
Word.
absolutely. So they want this to go through without a hitch. This, I happen to find this source, and it's something that I know something about. My husband is a environmental scientist and works for landfills mostly. And so he goes through this process with them of doing the city council meetings and listening to people. And there's always a lot of back and forth exactly like this of people, we need a landfill, we don't want it near us. Where are we going to put it? What's going to happen? So it's a very common municipal thing that goes on all the time. Which one do you feel, and you can take a few minutes, think about it, discuss, and like, which do you think was the most biased? Like,
The
That's
city
good.
council.
yeah, this is
meeting.
that last page. Just looking at this question right here, number 2, which article did you feel was the most biased?
Friday city council meeting.
Yeah, it is. The other ones, at least they're talking about how the city council had a meeting and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then the first one, the one that we did, doesn't even say anything like that, it's just giving,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Find out. How did your Harrison Mark and operate a project change that you? On smoke, can't hear them. Right.
maybe other,
Oh, but now I'm back on.
or even.
Second one. That was one. Yeah, she was doing it specific. Are you looking for like specific wording on these or?
Not specific wording. We're just gonna have a chat about it again.
So the second one, I put, by reading the second and third, since the first one looked the most biased.
Are you taking into? I see that bias.
Oh, you're talking about that, one, right?
They're reading the second line by you.
Since the first one was the most biased,
Yeah.
basically the same.
So if you're going through all the questions at once, which is great, we're gonna do how does your opinion change as you have read the different articles? So not just the one that you were focused on, but all three that you read. How does it change as you go through them? And then what ways did each article express bias? Okay, yeah. Other people ready? No. We need another minute or two. Okay, let's bring it on back then. All right, great. So what do you think? Just out to everybody, which one do you think is the most biased? First one, yeah, why?
Because it's only giving mainly his opinion, it's not backing up the other side of the story.
There's no other side to this story. Fantastic. Yes, it's just that simple. He didn't write any facts, all opinions. That's that. He didn't focus on any of the realistic positives that a landfill is going to bring because we've got to put our garbage somewhere. How about the next one? How did your opinion change as you read it? Were you agreeing with him in the first article as you read it and then kind of changing along, or
Yeah.
you had no opinion? Yeah, yeah, no opinion. That's fair. That's fair.
So yeah, for us, we put by reading the second and third articles, since the first one was the most biased.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So first, the mountains of garbage do sound that bad and people not being able to enjoy their backyard, but those are real opinions. And as you read more of like what's going on, it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is just one riotous individual. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So what did you think? Could you identify particular bias language from the first article? What did he say that made it? Unfortunately, that's a good one. What else? Anything else trying to evoke emotion from us?
First one,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said,
Yeah, I don't doubt. I
A
don't
neighbor
doubt.
in our backyard.
Yeah, that one's not necessarily inflammatory. There we go. Sad. That's an emotional response to this. I'm sad to say. Good job. Yeah. Disappointment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
feel the same way.
Right. That is just, yeah, as Hawa said too. Fantastic. How about the EWM public relations? That's number 3. But everybody can answer to that. Any language that makes them sound biased? Proud, absolutely. They are proud to announce. Good choice. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, they're talking about their own company. Yeah. But excited would be another one. That would be some emotional or strong language that would try to get us to be excited also. How about city council? Do they have language that makes it biased? And you're absolutely right. There really isn't any. There really isn't anything that shows a real strong feeling or strong emotions or trying to sway people one direction or the other. Great work. What's that? Happy could. Yeah, Happy's getting close. Yeah. That's not bad. Great job, everybody. Thank you. Great job. Great job. Okay, now we're gonna pop back up here and talk about primary and secondary sources. You can feel free to go back to your seats if you'd like to, or stay where you're at. I'll wait till people. Okay, here we go.
Historical sources are central to your study of the past and are important to your success in history assessment thesis. Therefore, it is crucial that you understand what historical sources are and the various kinds and types they exist in. So what is a historical source? A source is something that provides you with information about the historical topic you are studying. They can either be written, like books or websites, or non-written, like photographs or artifacts. No matter what you're doing in history, you'll use sources in order to find out information from the past. This could mean simply reading a textbook or a website, or attempting to interpret ancient artifacts. Either way, these documents and artifacts provide information that is useful to your historical studies and are therefore considered sources. There are 2 kinds of sources, primary and secondary. The main difference between a primary and a secondary source is when they were made. In order to determine whether a particular source is a primary or secondary source, you need to determine its time of creation. If a source was made during the historical period you're studying, it is considered a primary source. If the source was made after the time period you're studying, it is considered a secondary source. So what are primary sources? As stated, primary sources are sources of information that were made during the historical period that you are studying. For example, if you're studying World War I, any document created at the time of the war would be considered a primary source. Alternatively, a primary source is a document that was made by someone who lived through the events they describe, even if they wrote down what they saw several years later. For example, someone could have lived through World War I as a teenager, but only wrote down their experiences decades later. As a result, their writing is still considered a primary source about World War I. Often, primary sources are the most difficult to find, but as a result, are often the strongest evidence you can use in your assessment pieces. There are some common types of primary sources that you will be looking at. The most common are published documents. These are written sources that were intentionally published to be read by other people. Examples of published documents include books, magazines, newspapers, government documents, advertisements, maps, posters, and legal documents. When reading published documents, please remember that just because they are published does not necessarily make them accurate or reliable. Another type of primary source is an unpublished document. Unpublished documents are also mainly written sources, but were not originally intended to be read by a wide audience, and were typically only meant for the personal use of the author. Examples of unpublished personal documents include letters, diaries, and school report cards. Unlike published documents, unpublished records may be difficult to find because few copies exist. Please be aware that in some cases, unpublished documents can be collected and eventually published, but always keep in mind that they were not originally intended for public consumption. A third type of primary source are visual documents. These are sources that are predominantly images and not words. Such examples of visual documents include photographs, films, paintings, cartoons, and posters. Since visual documents contain more images than words, they require careful interpretation to work out what message they are trying to convey. The final type of primary source are artifacts. Artifacts are man-made objects that are usually uncovered by archaeologists. Examples of artifacts are pottery, furniture, clothing, buildings, and other physical items from the past. Like visual documents, because there is no writing on artifacts, they require careful interpretation to be used as evidence in your arguments. Usually, you can use artifacts to corroborate or contradict what your written sources say about the past. In contrast to primary sources, secondary sources are documents that were made after the time period you were studying, and were created by people who didn't personally experience the events they describe. For example, if you are reading a history textbook about World War I by an author who didn't live through the war, it would be considered a secondary source. Since secondary sources can basically be written by anyone since the time of the events, you'll find that some secondary sources are better than others. Typically, you should only use secondary sources that are written by qualified historians, such as academics, as they are usually more reliable. Like primary sources, secondary sources come in different types. The most common type of secondary sources are books. Books such as school textbooks often have a lot of information about a particular historical period. Another common type of secondary source are academic journal articles. Academic articles are documents that are written by university academics that are published in academic journals for other university academics to read. Since academic journal articles are the result of many years of research by specialists in particular areas of history, they are some of the highest quality secondary sources you can use. However, please be aware that academic journals are written for an academic audience, so the language can be very difficult to read at first. A third kind of secondary source are websites. There are countless numbers of websites that discuss historical events and people. As a result, different websites vary widely in accuracy, reliability, and relevance.
Some are written by
However, very
babies.
few of them are created by qualified historians or experts in their fields. Therefore, be critical of the websites you find through a basic Google search, as most are not of sufficient quality for your essays. If you choose to use websites as secondary sources, make sure you only choose them from respectable individuals or institutions such as universities, museums, or government archives. So now that you know what primary and secondary sources are and what types they exist in, let's look at some examples to solidify your learning. The example sources we'll be looking at will be providing information about the ancient Roman city of Pompeii in Italy, which was buried as a result of an eruption from Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. The first source is by a Roman author called Pliny the Younger, who wrote a letter about the events to his friend Tacitus. In the letter, he says that one day, between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, a cloud of unusual size and appearance was rising from Vesuvius. I can best describe its shape by likening it to a pine tree. It rose into the sky on a very long trunk, from which spread some branches. Ash was born, bits of pumice and rocks that were blackened and burned and shattered by the fire. The buildings were being rocked by a series of strong tremors and appeared to have come loose from their foundations and to be sliding this way and that. Now, even though Pliny wrote this letter many years after the events occurred, he was still an eyewitness of the eruption. Therefore, he is considered a primary source of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. A second example is also a Roman author called Cassius Dio, who wrote a history book about ancient Rome in which he mentioned the eruption. He describes the events as follows. A great fire suddenly flared up at the very end of the summer. Mount Vesuvius had inexhaustible fountains of fire. Then came sudden violent earthquakes. First, huge stones flew up as high as the mountaintop. Then came a great quantity of fire and endless smoke. All the while, an inconceivable quantity of ash was being blown out. It buried two entire cities, Herculaneum and Pompeii. Now, Cassius Dio wasn't born until AD 155. They didn't write his historical account until over 100 years after the events took place. Therefore, he is considered a secondary source of the events he describes. Our third and final source are the archaeological remains of the city of Pompeii itself, an entire Roman city buried in meters of ash and pumice. The remains of countless earthquake-damaged buildings and entombed human remains all corroborate the information provided by Pliny and Cassius Dio. Physical remains of Pompeii date from the time of the eruption in AD 79, so they are also considered primary sources. Now you have a better understanding of primary and secondary sources and the different types that can be sorted into. I hope that you feel more confident in your studies. If you need further explanations, examples, and advice, head over to historyskills.com, and I'll see you next time.
Okay. Any questions about that? Yeah, pretty straightforward. Let's practice. So I'm going to give you some sources, and we're going to determine whether these seem like primary or secondary sources. Okay, let me open that up for you. We'll see if there's anybody still here. Yeah, Dan is here. Okay. Make that big as we can. Okay, let's determine whether these are primary or secondary. The first one is a play showing how Ben Franklin flew a kite in a lightning storm. What do we think? Secondary, absolutely. Number two, a short story describing Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla's electric battle.
Secondary.
Okay, yes, it is secondary. Sorry. Oh, okay, Chris and two, yeah. Secondary, you're right. Dan, that's a good way. 2 for secondary. Okay, thanks. 3, Anne Frank describing her life during World War II. That's a primary, yeah, absolutely. Good. How about 4, a cartoon showing how Pocahontas met John Smith? Secondary. How about 5, a textbook describing the civil rights movement? It's going to be secondary. That's 6, a news report about the opening of a power plant.
Secondary.
It's going to be primary. Yeah, primary. They're reporting about it. Yeah. Number 7, a scientist explaining what it was like for Buzz Aldrin to walk on the moon. That's secondary. 8, a YouTube video describing how the pyramids were built. Very secondary. An interview with Alexander Graham Bell about how he invented the telephone. Primary. Radio broadcast from the day the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. That is primary. Excellent. Number 11, an autobiography by the 40th President Ronald Reagan. This is a trick. Yeah, what does autobiography mean? That's right. Autobiography is the one that is written by yourself. So biographies can be written by anybody. Autobiography, you're writing about your own life. So that would be considered primary. About 12, a book describing Christopher Columbus sailing to America. Secondary. 13, a famous artist's painting of what cowboy life was probably like. In that case, unless it was the cowboy out there painting his own painting of his experience, that could be primary. But just imagining what cowboy life was probably like is going to be secondary. Good guess though. How about a journal by a cowboy from the cattle drives to Texas? That's a primary one. And the United States Constitution. That's primary. Excellent. Yeah, everybody's got that. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, the last thing that we are going to do in here is take a look at a historical figure from both primary and secondary aspects. Okay, so this sets the stage for whose Sojourner Truth is. Anybody ever hear of Sojourner Truth? Okay, well, we'll just learn about her. I don't need to explain it. You can see, very powerful person in history.
1828, Sojourner Truth approached the grand jury of Kingston, New York. She had no experience with the legal system, no money, and no power in the eyes of the court. Ignoring the jury's scorn, Truth said she was there to fight for custody of her 5-year-old son, Peter, who'd been illegally sold to an enslaver in Alabama. As the trial played out over the next several months, Truth raised funds, strategized with lawyers, and held her faith. Finally, in the spring of 1828, Peter was returned to her care. But Truth's work was far from over. She would dedicate the rest of her life to pursuing justice and spiritual understanding. Truth was born into slavery as Isabella Baumfree in the late 18th century in Ulster County, New York. Although New York State had announced the abolition of slavery in 1799, the Emancipation Act was gradual. Those who were currently enslaved were forced to serve a period of indentured servitude until their mid-20s. Throughout this period, enslavers repeatedly sold Baumfree, tearing her from her loved ones. Often, she was explicitly prevented from pursuing new relationships. Eventually, she married an enslaved man named Thomas, with whom she had 3 children. She was desperate to keep her new family together, but the slow progress of abolition threatened this hope. Baumfree's enslaver, John Dumont, had promised to free her by 1826. When he failed to keep his word, Baumfree fled for her safety. During the escape, she was only able to rescue her youngest daughter, Sophia, while her other children remained in bondage. It would be 2 years before she regained custody of Peter. After that, she would wait another 2 years before she saw any of her other children. During this time, Baumfree found solace in her faith and became increasingly dedicated to religious reflection. After settling in Kingston, New York, she joined a Methodist community with political views. She continued her practice of being allowed to die in private, and one night, her evening prayers took on even more sacred significance. Baumfree claimed to hear the voice of God, telling her to leave Kingston and share her holy message with others. Though she never learned to read or write, Baumfree became known as an electrifying orator, whose speeches drew on biblical references, spiritual ideals, and her experience of slavery. Her sermons denounced the oppression of African Americans and women in general, and became prominent in campaigns for both abolition and women's rights. In 1843, she renamed herself Sojourner Truth and embarked on the legendary speaking tour. Truth saw her journey as a missionary. Her faith often led her to the nation's most hostile regions, where she spoke to grieving audiences and crowd. Truth was confident God would protect her, but some crowds responded to her bravery with violence. During one of her sermons, a mob of white men threatened to set fire to the tent where she was speaking. In her memoir, Truth recalled steeling herself to confront them. "Have I not faith enough to go out and quell that mob? I felt as if I had 3 hearts, and that they were so large my body could hardly hold them." She placated the men with song and prayer until they had no desire to harm her. Truth's speeches impacted thousands of people in communities across the nation, but her activism went far beyond public speaking. During the Civil War, she became involved with the Union Army, recruiting soldiers and organizing supplies for Black troops. Her work was so well regarded that she was invited to meet President Lincoln. She took the occasion to argue that all formerly enslaved people should be granted land by the government. Truth continued to travel and speak well into her 80s. Until her death in 1883, she remained an outspoken critic who fought for her right to be heard in a hostile world. As Truth once said, I feel safe even in the midst of my enemies, for the truth is powerful and will prevail. For another account of an enslaved woman who laid her life on the line in the fight for freedom and justice, check out this video of the
Okay, so that sets our stage for Sojourner Truth. And here is a primary source. It is the transcript of a speech that she gave to Women's Convention. Take a few moments and read that, and then we will go over these questions together. Okay, if you are done reading, think about this first question. It's not easy to answer, so take a moment. List at least 3 arguments. Just not, they don't have to be complete sentences. Just come up with what are 3 arguments that Truth makes to show why women, particularly Black women, deserve equal rights. What are the points that she picks out?
Colleen, is it okay if I head out? I have to get to work a little early today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Dan, just if you know, I know you have a GED account because you've already passed a test, so we're good there. Your assignments. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, anybody have any thoughts? What's one thing, one argument, one point that Truth is making? Yeah.
She chop and bow down the grass, I guess, what?
Absolutely. So first she's coming at it from a physical standpoint. She's giving all the physical reasons why she is equal to men in terms of her power, in terms of what she needs to eat. You know, it's a very physical perspective on equality. What else do we have? What's another point?
If a woman having 10 and men a quarter, why can't she have her little bill? No?
Yeah, so what do you think her point is behind that statement? Yeah.
If a man can have it, why can't a woman have it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think was going on then if she's talking about why can't she have her little pint full? What does that mean? Like exactly? Yeah. So she's using, it sounds like maybe beer or something as a comparison, right? But it's like, why is my cup not full? And yours is, yeah. So good one. What other points are in here? Yep, there's the physical side. What did she say right before that pint court business? Look at that sentence right at the beginning. As for intellect. Okay, so she first talks about physically being as strong. Secondly, she's talking about mentally as strong. What else is in here? What else happens? Then, yeah, then a spiritual argument for the equality. Yeah, absolutely. Great, fantastic. Yeah, what do you think the significance of her saying that she worked as hard as men and endured that hardship? What's the significance of it? Yeah, for sure.
You can do the same as men.
Yeah, it's really just like physically taking it on. Like there's this whole weaker sex kind of business, and she's trying to refute that of just like not the weaker sex, and I can take on the pain and the physical burden just as much as you do. And so it doesn't make sense that there is an equality. So what do you think about her perspective as a Black woman and a formerly enslaved person? Did this strengthen her critique of women's rights limitations? Like, how did that help her argument?
Yeah, the first-hand experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we saw that a lot of times she's speaking with people that do not have the firsthand experience and bringing that to bear. Excellent. Okay. So that is primary source because it is the transcript of her speech that she gave in that moment. And we've got the date, time, exactly where, and where this was then published to, because they just recorded it as she went. Okay, so the first one we saw, then the video was a secondary source because they're just recapping her life. And then this third one, I want to know, what do you think? This is a famous Sojourner Truth speech also.
Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter. I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North, all talking about rights, the white man will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about? That man over there says that women need to be helped in carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place. And ain't I a woman? Look at me. Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? That's it, honey. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negro rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? When that little man in black there, he says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it. The men better let them. Obliged to you for hearing me. And now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say.
Secondary.
Ooh, powerfully delivered. Yeah, what makes you say secondary?
First I thought it was primary because it seemed that she was saying her experience, that then like 13 children, and then she was talking about other things.
Okay. So all of that is just a recited speech of Sojourner Truth. So she did have 13, that Sojourner Truth had 13 children.
And then she said
But-
something from the past, right?
Yeah, so this is like, it's almost like she took a transcript
Yeah.
and she's reading it. She's reading a transcript exactly what Sojourner Truth, but obviously that was not Sojourner Truth. Yeah. So that's what makes it secondary. And that's like one of the most difficult like differentiations, I think. But because it's got an artist's interpretation of how it came out, it makes it a secondary source, but only just barely. Impressive delivery. Okay, thanks. So again, the only assignment for tonight is to create your GED.com account. If people do not have access to a computer or are not sure how they want to do it, we can go over to a computer room right now and get that done. Anybody need to do that? Yeah, let's do it. That's the only assignment for tonight.
Yeah.
No.
We're done?
We are done.
All
That's
right,
it.
thank you, Colin.
Thank you. It's really nice to see you, Michael.
Yeah, see you next week.
Next week. Thanks. Thank you. You too, Howell.